Okay, guys, so we're at the final module here. We're almost done. We're just going to do a quick little recap on everything that we've done up to this point. So let's go ahead and load up module 13 sequence, and everything should be as we had it before. So we're just going to do a little recap on everything that we've done. We've created our coverage for our scene. Right now we're just using 3 shots, really. We're using our wide. Let's click this camera right here, and we're going to be behind the wall once again. Let's go ahead and click on that wall, mute that folder, and here we go. So we have our wide shot, introducing the scene, the geography, the location, and the actors blocking. And then we're going into a close-up of Ziva. And as you remember, we'll do the close-up of Trey as well. Now, this is pretty minimal coverage at this point for a scene like this. Even if it was a long talking scene, this would be 3 shots isn't really a ton for a long scene. You would want to have more options in the editing room were you to shoot this. We did, of course, create our crane shot and our dolly shot, and those were more demos than anything that I would personally use in a scene like this. We can take a look at those really quick. Let's pop out here. And maybe the crane cam might be the way to introduce the scene. And as we look at that here, click on this camera icon right there. We've looked at this shot before. There's interesting stuff going on, but again, it might be a little bit extravagant for a scene like this. It's still pretty cool to see how to use all this stuff, but I wouldn't use it for coverage of this scene necessarily. And same with the dolly. Our wall back there is off right now. You can turn that on and off. And same for the dolly, right? So if we went to our dolly shot, it's a very extravagant Michael Bay 360 shot or 180 shot, and could be cool here and there. I slowed it down a little bit for this module. Maybe this is a shot that we can cut to, as onto Trey. That could potentially work, especially if it's a little bit more slowed down like this. And remember, we would want to turn off the lights for this shot if we did that. But the 3 usable shots we've created are great. What I'd like to do is, again, recap everything we've done and then maybe create a couple other shots like over the shoulders on our characters. And then we'll have 5 shots per se that we can use to cut to. So starting from the very top and from the very beginning of this module, we started with our close-up of Ziva. And what did we do? We chose our camera and our aspect ratio. And if we go to our close-up Ziva here, we can look at those things that we started way back on module 2, which was we chose the Alexa LF 240 aspect ratio sensor size, right? So 36.7 by 15 by 31. And that gave us this nice widescreen, cinematic frame. And also a large sensor, which gives us nice shallow depth of field and makes it feel bigger. Next up, we found our focal lengths, right? In this case, we used a 40 mil. Seems to be a pretty good lens for close-ups. And we found a nice close-up shot of Ziva here. And then on top of that, we found a really good wide-angle version on Trey. Something a little bit different that we could experiment with focal length-wise. After that, we played with depth of field and aperture, and we set it to a pretty wide open setting, 1.8, so that we could have some nice shallow depth of field in the background. And so that when we go to our wides, for example, up here, we also have, I'm going to pull off the wall again, we have some nice bokehs and whatnot happening in the background. Okay, and after that, we laid the groundworks for camera placement. We added camera movement, and then to get a feel for the space and the parallax of these moving shots, really showed us how cinematic they can feel, right? We added some movement to our wide. We also added a little bit of a move on Ziva, and same with Trey. We also, like we went over earlier, we played with the dolly and the crane, which gave us a really good sense of how to use those tools. Were we to previs, say if I was using a Technocrane on set, this would be a great case use to just kind of bring it into Unreal Engine and then take a look at how it would fit and whether or not we would have the space to pull off such a shot, right? If we go outside again and take a look at our crane shot, we now know that if I had a Technocrane on set, I would like to have the base outside the set this much distance from the actual flats and the wall of the set, and we would have to have it be able to extend and fit through this window. So I would know more or less, and I'd tell a production designer and director and whoever else needs to know what we're doing with our shots here when we are using a technocrane, for example. Same thing with a dolly or a slider or whatever we would be using on set. This is just great tools that Unreal has built in that we can use for previs. Also, again, we went over this, but it grounds our camera, right? It won't let us do any crazy shots because, we're kind of tethered to the limitations of the physical tools here. And that makes our shot a little bit more grounded and not flying around all over the set. On top of all that, we then did some last final tweaks to color correction, color grade, and we added some subtle imperfections in our post-process volume. So let's take a look at that as well. Going back to just this button right here so we can see all three of our shots. And we can see, we went over this earlier, but the grade and how everything comes together to kind of make it feel as cinematic as we can possibly make it. And that's pretty much, the recap of, the 5-minute recap of our class here. I wanted to just make sure that we kind of went over all of those little things again. And before we leave, I'm going to go ahead and create 2 over-the-shoulder shots here. And I'll do this pretty quickly, just so we can add those to our shot list or, our camera cuts over here too. So let's go ahead and close-up tray. Let's copy-paste that. Control-C, Control-V if you're on Windows. And then we're going to go and call this OTS tray. And since this already has all the tray stuff, it'll be easy for us to just kind of copy it and set up a shot really quick. And click this button if it's not already on. And let's move backwards. Let's find our, our over the shoulder of tray here. So it's a little wide. Typically you could shoot, this is technically still an over the shoulder, but we're on a 24 mil. It's a pretty wide shot. We don't really get his emotion there. And the point of this is to put 2 actors in the same shot so we can feel the shoulder of one actor and then see the close up of the other. So we're going to go a little bit longer, maybe like a 65 here and reframe. And that feels better. Like we're putting both actors in the same shot. We see Ziva's shoulder, and then we have Trey's essentially medium shot. So we can do something like this. There's many ways to frame up and over the shoulder. You can get pretty interesting with it or unorthodox by doing something like this, where you're stacking them on the right side. We looked at this in the shot deck module. This could be interesting to do. It's not bad at all. I like it. Add some stuff over here. If you have like a lot of depth, this might be a cool shot to do. For this, let's just keep things pretty traditional here. We're going to go somewhere in this vicinity where we're not stacking them on one side. We're kind of just filling up the frame. So somewhere in there is not bad. Let's leave that for now. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So let's go ahead and copy close-up Ziva and paste it. And let's rename it to OTS Ziva. Let's pilot that camera, OTS Ziva. Let's go ahead and move it around to where we just were. We're going to do the reverse. So again, we'll go to a 65 over here in the details panel, punch in a little bit and a little fast there and kind of match what we had on the other side. So I believe something, maybe come down a little lower. Yeah. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? But let's see. Somewhere in that vicinity should be pretty good. Let's take a look. Let's go to our OTS tray. So we kind of have a waist up on him, her shoulder almost to the right side of frame, and then her left shoulder almost in the middle of the frame. Let's take a look. Just about off to the left here. So let's now take a look at our OTS Ziva. More or less that can come over this way. Back it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, remember we turned off the lights that are hitting Trey's back here. That's what we'd probably do And for the time being, for demo purposes, I'll go ahead and turn them off so you can see what that looks like. Kickers. And actually, we just want Trey's kicker to be off, which I believe I've named it as rect kicker Trey, rect backlight Trey. So it seems pretty dark now. I would probably not go full off like this. I would probably go, maybe half or two. Like instead of 10, I would go to 2. So let's turn that on. This is where it was. Maybe I'd go to like, 2, 3 even. 2 feels pretty good because it's distracting when we have that light on and we're on this side of him. Just a quick little demo of creating a couple over the shoulders here. That feels pretty good. So let's add them to our sequence. I'm going to go and select both of these, OTS Trey and Ziva, and we're going to put them in our sequence over here under cameras. I'm going to drag those in and drag them into the cameras folder. And let's go ahead and they went into the crane folder for some reason. Let's put them under sticks and let's twirl that down. Okay, here we go. OTS Trey, OTS Ziva are in. And what we can do is we can just do a little very simple move here, nothing too crazy. Maybe we'll just actually start it from the very beginning. We'll hit S where we want to control OTS Ziva here. We're going to hit S from here and just push in ever so slightly so we can have a little bit of movement on everything. Actually, I need to move forward in the timeline before I hit the next keyframe. And maybe I'll go to somewhere in here, push in, reframe, and hit S. And there we have our 2 keyframes really quick. And we'll do the same thing on Trey. So hit this camera button and we'll do the same thing. Come back here. Sure we're on Trey. Hit S. Go a little bit further. Doesn't have to be perfect, aligned. And then let's push in on Trey here and hit S. Let's see how these feel. So very even subtler than our other cameras. So let's actually make it a little bit faster so we can feel them move a little bit more. So I'm just dragging this keyframe over this way. And same thing with Ziva here. See what that looks like. Great. So we added some movement to our OTSs. And finally, you could add some handheld too if you wanted to. But for now, I'm just going to add these in. So we just cut away, going to our camera cuts here, where we went on a wide to Ziva, to Trey. Maybe now we cut back to Ziva on her OTS. So we'll go to OTS Ziva's here, create that camera shot, and we'll have to adjust the keyframe. Actually, let's drag these out. They're a little bit long. Let's maybe bring in his this way, and we'll just make these a little quicker cuts, right? So they're on Trey, pushing in on Ziva on her OTS, and then right around here we can go to OTS Trey. See how that handheld gives it a lot of life too, and just so subtle, but it just makes it much more organic feeling compared to these 2 shots that we just added, the Trey and Ziva OTS. There's movement, but there's not enough life to it. All right, so that's pretty good. I'm just going to make those 2 moves a little faster. As you can see, we should just move these 2 over this way so we can feel it. And so that's under OTS Ziva. And then the one for Trey, we'll move those over as well, just so we can see those 2 moves a little bit better. Something like that. We can even make them a little faster too by just dragging those keyframes in. Why not keep them all in the same boat? All right, let's see how those feel. Pushing in on Trey, OTS on Ziva, OTS on Trey. And then just for fun, we'll add one last wide, and maybe we'll even back out on the wide just so we can we're kind of pulling away from the scene. The scene is over, and so we'll pull out from that. So let's go to our wide. We have our 2 keyframes here. What we can do is we can add another keyframe here, and I'm going to actually scroll it back a little bit. And for here, we're going to just back out the camera. Actually, since we want it to be a pretty slow move, we can go all the way to maybe 1200 frames. And on our location, remember, we're going to just hit X. We're going to back it out to where we were before, somewhere in this vicinity here. Let's take a look. Now we're 2 close-ups. Push in on Ziva, push in on Trey. So we'll go ahead and make this a little bit faster. It's just a little too slow here. So let's move this keyframe all the way down to this area over here. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, great. That feels pretty good. And if we want that kind of handheld move, again, for this section right here, we can also do that. So we have our camera shakes under our wide. We have all four right here. We can just drag these so that it encompasses that area as well. Saying goodbye to the scene and cut. Great. All right, guys. Well, that's about it. That pretty much wraps up this course on cinematic realism for the Cine Camera Actor inside of Unreal Engine. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you've learned some stuff.